Anand, thanks so much for being part of the Down and Dirty podcast. For all of you who are watching this, I have known Anand now for a good couple of years, and I respect his work so much as a UI UX designer. And I am thrilled that you're going to talk to us about your experience as a designer and the tool that you use or would recommend to other designers and the reasons why this is the tool of your choice. So, Anand Bongir, welcome again. Do you want to start us off with a quick introduction?
Yes. So, hi, I'm Anand Bongir. I run a company called Sukratu, which is based in Pune. We started in the thick of COVID, that's August 2020. And we are a design company which focuses on product design. So, which is basically UI UX and web, that includes web and mobile design.
Okay. And if for someone who may not fully understand what a UI UX designer does, what does a day in your life look like?
So right now, if I'm wearing my designer hat right now, which I'm doing sometimes, but most of the times it's more of a CEO sort of thing. But if I'm wearing my designer hat, most of my day would look like when I start my work, I generally am involved in taking design decisions about the product, which is basically creating user journeys, which is basically just a term for mapping out how a user proceeds through the entire product. Then at making sure that we are designing the screens, which is the actual interface that users use on their product. So basically, if it's a website, it'll be website screens. If it's a mobile app, then it will be every screen that you use on the mobile app. We actually design those in a tool called Figma, which we'll get into later. So we make sure that the screens are following the design patterns of the company or the brand that we're working for. So that's what we generally do.
Got it. So what would you say is the most rewarding part of being a designer, a product designer?
So the most rewarding thing is seeing whatever you're creating get into people's hands and they are actually using it and they're finding the experience joyful. That's like that gives us a kick if whenever we build anything or we design anything to give us. But there are so many moving parts to that as well. Like it never happens that whatever we design actually gets implemented. So there's teams of developers who we have to continuously interface with and make sure that everything is right. So all of these things sort of come together, and whenever it goes in the hands of the user, it's always a delight to watch them use it.
And so if that is the most rewarding part, then what is the least rewarding part?
The least rewarding part is, to be frank, much of our work, due to various reasons, never gets to the hands of customers, which is disheartening for us because we put our heart and soul in whatever we do. But that's something that we've sort of come to accept, that chalta hai, hota hai, this happens. So that I would say is the disheartening thing. But actually having the product getting negative feedback is also fine. But the product not being able to make it to the user's hands is more, I would say, disheartening.
Got it. So tell me something. If you spend a lot of time designing screens that may or may not make it ultimately into the hands of a user, then it seems that one way in which you could, or that you might be thinking about spending less time designing screens upfront. Let's talk about like very basic prototypes, because we don't know what will eventually make it. Do things like templates and simplified screens matter more then, so that you're not investing too much in designs that don't make it? Or do you end up designing right till the end and it's all completely ready and it breaks at that point?
No. So what happens is, now over a period of time, once you get to do this job, you will always end up in a pattern. So, and I think that's true for any profession. Over a period of time, as you keep working over many years, you will always have some sort of a system, some sort of a process. So that's what we've sort of developed as well for ourselves. And we always start with process that includes finding references. which basically involves doing some sort of a market research to see what's already out there and seeing what are the user patterns, what are the patterns that users are already using in their daily lives, so that they already have a mental model of, okay, how a product should behave. Like for example, a healthcare app should have a certain features that I'm already used to. Social app should have certain features. The recently introduced thread app, you must have seen, it already has certain features that users take for granted. They think that these are the basics that need to be there. So there are certain patterns that come in with every you could say a domain, as well as in our working there are certain templates as well that we have come across that we continuously use for projects. So for example, we have a certain way of doing user flows, we have a certain way of doing UI designs as well, for if it's a website, if it's a web app, if it's a mobile app. There are certain things that we templatize these things, and then we improve on them based on the requirement of the company or the product.
Understood. So then finding tools, platforms, resources that would allow you to templatize certain things for you to set up your user flows in a way that you can customize as needed and yet kind of run, hit the ground running. That seems like it would be important for the work that you do.
Yes. So so most of our work, pretty much all of our work happens in Figma now. And so there are a lot of resources, tons of resources on Figma for every single step of the UI design process that you need. So that's what we end up. So we don't use everything. We have a certain selected templates that are really good quality that we look at, and then we adopt them as per the need that company.
Understood. Okay, so let's talk about these tools. So I know you mentioned Figma a few times, and I'm assuming that is your tool of choice that we're going to talk about. But what else? Like before Figma, what has been your trajectory of the kinds of tools that you have used or perhaps continue to use towards different use cases?
So I started off with a tool called Sketch, which is still operational today. Like Sketch is the biggest competitor of Figma today. The difference between the two tools is Sketch is completely offline, which is something that you can download and install just like your Photoshop or other tools, which is very local. So you can actually create files, sketch files, and every sketch file can be a new project. So basically all of your work is saved as individual files, if that is something that is relevant for you. And you can keep saving those files, or you can keep creating new versions of files according to how the project progresses. So that's what I was using before Figma came into the picture. This is probably 7-8 years ago. And Figma, after coming into the scene, quickly became the dominant player because it changed the paradigm completely. It is more like Google Docs, using Google Docs for your document editing versus using Microsoft Word. One is a completely offline tool, and the other, of course, Word now has an online component, but it's primarily an offline tool. And now Google Docs is primarily an online tool. So the collaboration and other getting feedback, commenting, social aspects of it, all of these things come by default because of this paradigm.
And why is it important for you and the work that you do that you work with an online tool?
The reason, okay, couple of reasons. One is we don't have to worry about saving the file anymore. That's the biggest thing. Because before Figma, saving files in Sketch, and I'm sure you must have seen memes of Photoshop files getting crashed all the time, and being, even now, like even today, for a little percentage of work, if there's any print work to be done, we use CorelDRAW, and even saving the file crashes the laptop, like seriously. So it's crazy how the software, I mean, Sketch was not bad. Sketch is really good in its own right. But some of these other tools like Photoshop, CorelDRAW, they are extremely resource intensive for the system. So the biggest advantage was all that resource that the tool was using now didn't have to be of my own system. It could be of the tool itself. So Figma has hundreds of servers running, and they actually are using their compute power, and they are just showing me the interface of the design. So it's no longer using my compute power. Of course, it's using a little bit of my graphic capabilities of my device, but it's not using any of my extra CPU power. So it frees up that CPU power, and I can work more efficiently. Of course, the one sort of a downside with that is you need an internet connection to work with that, or you need to have the file opened once on your system before, so that it can cache the file. But the second biggest advantage of this is collaboration. So the fact that it is an online tool allows multiple people to work in a file simultaneously. Is the first thing from the team side, from our side. From the client side, we can share access to the file just by sharing a link, and they're able to see the progress real time. So we are actually live building the project in the file, and they can actually see and give us feedback if there's anything that they want to tell us. So that is the second biggest sort of advantage, I would say.
Yeah, and that makes sense if you're working with a remote team, which you do. So
Yes.
the ability to work online and have changes saved live. So tell me something, whenever the trade-off with having something that can be downloaded onto your system and something in the cloud is usually the light version, right? Like something that's in the cloud is lighter. So it may not have, or it used to be like that, because I remember my own research analysis software that I would use. Exactly this thing. I had one software which you downloaded locally, you know, but it was more robust because of that. It slowed down the system, no doubt, but it did a lot more because it was something that was local. And then there was a light version of it, which then, you know, moved online. So would you say now, with where design tools are, there is no distinction between you know, a local file and what's in the cloud, or is there still some trade-off?
Very little distinction at this point in terms of design tools, because of course this is true. What you're saying is exactly true for some specialized fields like medical, or even video editing for that matter. Lot of video editing capabilities happen on the offline tools that people are using today, because the tools, there are a couple of reasons behind this. One is, it's not that the online tools cannot be made that much capable. They can be. It's just that the client side, which is our device that we are using, may not be very fast. It may not have that quicker response time due to our internet connectivity speeds and other reasons, hardware limitations. It may not be that responsive, even if that tool is very strong on the online side. But Figma itself is extremely strong. It has a lot of features that normally you would not imagine having in an offline tool rather, sorry.
Understood. Got it. So your discovery of Figma, I imagine, is just the way a lot of other designers might have also discovered it. It was the next best. I mean, it was the new tool on the block, and very quickly became the front runner for what, you know, for what a lot of designers, product designers kind of resort to. Okay. So let's get into the weeds of it now. I want to understand how you use it, what aspects. We already talked about the importance of Figma for being online, collaboration, feedback, sharing with clients. But let's do a screen share. I've given you access right now. And if you can open up your Figma application. And what I would like to start with, Anand, is if you logged in, today's Thursday, you logged in and you opened up your screen, where do you go first? Like, what's important for you? Do you jump right into a project, or is there some other space where you land first?
So, okay, I'm sharing my screen. Let me know if you're able to see it.
Yes.
So this is what I see when I open Figma for the first time, or, you know, when I open Figma every day. the basic sign up process is very standard. Whatever you would see in your other SaaS apps, that
Yeah.
you just have to sign up and you will be greeted with this something of this sort. Then what happens is these are all the projects that we see, right? And these are actually individual files. Now you can organize this any way that you like. In some of our corporate customers, what happens is on the left side, these are more of projects. We use them as projects, and there can be multiple files under a project, right? For smaller projects, we use one file for one project. So it's that simple, right? Sometimes bigger projects have multiple modules spread across different devices and stuff like that. So there may be multiple files there. Now, if I open this, now if you see the first product itself, this is a project that we've been working on since many years. It's already out there. So you'll see that there are 3 users already live in this project. They are working right now. So these are my team members who are already working in the file. And you will see that if I open this file, there are a lot of different ways that we've organized the screens here. So if you see this is the first time, and it takes a couple of seconds to load. Yeah. So do you see this? First time user, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4.
Yes.
So we organize all of our screens like this so that it's easier for whoever is looking at this. Let's say other stakeholders, they can be companies, leader management, they can be developers who are implementing this. It's easier for them to understand, okay, where am I supposed to navigate, or where am I supposed to look for a particular screen, right?
Okay.
So then when we open this, we look at different types of screens, right? So this is basically, let's say, for example, this is your language selection app. So language selection screen. So then we look at different screens in the same flow. So we organize this like this, and this is an infinite canvas. So you can actually, there are of course limits to this canvas as well. But for normal uses and purposes, this is an infinite canvas. You can fit almost, what I would say, 100, 150 mobile screens, 70 to 100 web screens, because they are larger, into this canvas.
Okay, and so this is how you start off a project in Figma. This is what you would call your different, are these your user flows? Are these
canvas? This is a canvas, I would say.
Okay, and this is something that you would do for every project. You kind of have a canvas where people can see, just top level. Here is the experience of a new user, of a first time user. Here's the experience of someone who would unsubscribe. Here would be right. Okay.
These are actually different flows that for the particular app. So for example, if a user is coming to this particular app for the first time, then these are the 4 steps that they have to follow. If the user has unsubscribed, then these are the steps that they have to follow. So there are different flows for different kinds of people, depending on where they are in the product. And
you do this because it gives everyone basically a kind of like what we would have as a site map on a website. Like here's your top level architecture.
Exactly. Correct.
Where you need to go to find the right screens. So what are some of your go-to features in order to set up an experience like this in Figma? What are you using a lot of in order to get the job done?
So we are basically using things like, so there are a couple of things here. One is, if I open this, there's something called a section, right? So this is a relatively new feature, and you'll see Nikhil is already live here. He's doing something in the file, but I can create a section like this, and I can name this section, let's say, login flow, right? And Figma has a couple of features now, where if I click this icon, it shows a tag called ready for dev. So essentially what happens is, if I'm done with any screen, I'll just move it here. And then the developer knows that, okay, this screen is finalized from the design side and it is ready for development.
This is almost a folder. This is like having a folder which is ready for dev.
Yes, exactly. This is like a folder that is ready for dev, except in a folder, I have to save every file, and it's like versioned. It's like a snapshot of a particular point in time. Here, these things are dynamic. I can actually change anything here. These are, and this can keep improving or iterating over time.
Understood, understood. And why is it important for you to, work? Why is this something that you wanted to call out? That, hey, this is something new that Figma has done. I can create a section and dump stuff here and make it ready for dev. What were you doing before this? Why is this important?
Before, what used to happen is developers used to get lost in terms of understanding which exactly screens were ready and which were not ready. This was a huge problem that designers faced, because we had to communicate to the developers each time that, okay, go to this section, this is finalized, and pick up these screens from that section. So now it no longer is the case. We can just create a section, and we can just tell them that, okay, this particular section is done. You can just pick it up for development. Earlier, another sort of a way we used to manage this is on the left side here, you'll see pages. So there are different pages. If it's a smaller project, we used to create a new project, let's say for dev. And we used to design all the screens in our workspace here. And whenever we were done, we used to move everything here, like in a separate page. But now what happens is, the problem with this is good for smaller projects. But in some projects, we have different kinds of things going on at the same time. I'll show you an example. This is the perfect example here. So right now, this entire canvas is only for mobile app screens. But we also have kiosk. Like, for example, the company that this is for, they also have a kiosk, offline kiosk, where they mount a tablet, and they have the tablets, app that is running in the tablet.
Okay.
And we had to create screens for that tablet as well.
Yeah.
So you will understand now that these are completely different resolution screens. It is not at all same as the mobile app screens. Very different. So, and then again, you'll find that there is a website design here. There is a branding thing going on in the same file. So there are so many things that are going on. It's very difficult for people who are not designers to make sense of what's going on in the file.
And so now, in context of one page, let's say, you can let developers know that things are ready, which means in the kiosk space, if it involves, the printer knowing that the screen is ready, then, you can call that out, which is completely different from the mobile page, where you want the developer to know that this screen is ready.
Yes, exactly.
Understood. Okay. Okay, that's very, very, very interesting. And it almost seems crazy that this wasn't there before. You know what I mean? But maybe it's because design and development lived in different ecosystems, right? And now you have the ability to invite a developer in. And so now suddenly the developer is probably like, wow, this is a lot of stuff. Like, where do I need to go?
Yes, exactly. And actually, there's a dev mode that Figma recently launched just last month, where if you click on this dev mode icon, it will just show you the things that are only relevant for devs. So for example, if I select this screen, you'll see that they have CSS code, iOS, Android, SwiftUI code here. And you'll have padding, borders, what is the sizes of different elements, what are the distances of that elements from from different points. All of these things are now integrated in Figma itself. So earlier we used to use different tools to show this, but now everything is right here, like in Figma. Even if you see this particular block, you'll see that this is 8 pixels from all the sides, right? So this is what, and again, which colors are used, which are the assets to be used from that particular block. Everything is very seamless for the developer.
Okay, okay. So in addition to your regular design stack of things that you need to actually create screens, things that you are finding valuable, or things that you've pointed out in this session, are things that are making your collaboration, not only, we talked about collaboration with your own team, where it's online, collaboration with clients where you can send a link and they can join, but now also collab with other with developers, with another group of people who are part of the same product ecosystem.
Yes, yes,
right?
absolutely.
And this is where Figma for you right now is really shining, is their ability to think about, okay, a designer needs to communicate to a developer in the same
Yes,
app. What do
yes.
they need?
And Figma in their keynote recently said that around 20 to 30% of their designers are actually developers. So it's
Mm,
not even that they have to talk to developers separately. 30% of designers themselves are developing the front end. So it's not very so all of these features were a result of that fact.
understood. Now, in your day to day, Anand,
Yeah.
it seems, because you're also running your own company, right? And
Yes.
you mentioned that you said, okay, I'm going to put on my designer hat versus the CEO hat. So I'm assuming that as someone who is running the show,
Yes.
uh, as much time as you might be putting in actually designing the screens, you're probably spending time in facilitating
Yes.
conversation and handing over that knowledge transfer, let's say from design team to developer team to
Yes.
stakeholder slash founder, right, of the company that you're working with. So would it be fair to say it is in that context that this ability to quickly work with developers and take knowledge, take information that your team is putting together, or take assets that your team is putting together and push it along the product cycle is an important part of your job?
Oh, yes, absolutely. It has reduced our communication by 50%, I would say. Like it has cut down our communication by half. What we used to do earlier, like with probably Sketch and other tools,
Yeah.
we used to actually export every single screen. There was a separate workflow where we used to mark every single the markings that you see here, like these
Yeah.
distances, these are called red lines. So we used to
Okay.
redline every single element in every single screen, and then we had to hand it over to the developers, export every single icon, and then put it in a folder, upload it on Google Drive or something, share it with the developers, export every single screen as images so that they know what the screens look like, and put it in a folder, share it with the developers. So
And this
there
was
was
with
this
Sketch?
entire process which not does not exist for us anymore.
That is crazy. And that was all of this that you were doing earlier. Was it with Figma itself before its rollouts, or was it with Sketch or some other tool where you were
So before
downloading?
we were using Sketch, and
Huh.
in Sketch also there were some of these capabilities, but it was not very end to end, I would say. So we
Okay.
used to actually do this manually for each screen.
Hmm.
And imagine multiply that by 50, 100 screens. It was a
I-
complete like process in itself. So what used
Wow.
to take 3 months before now takes 1.5 months for us easily. So that's what has changed after Figma came into the picture.
Understood. Are there any other particular call outs that you want to make when it comes to Figma and you using it, not just the tool itself, but things that you have found particularly helpful, revolutionary, whatever you want to call it?
Well, the community part is very interesting in Figma. So, like I told you, there are so many templates that are available in the
Huh.
community as well. So, if you look at, there's always a community profile for everything. So this is my profile. I will. So yeah, it's here. They changed the. So if you
Yeah.
see the page, they have a community page as well, where you will find resources that others have created and shared it with the community.
Hmm.
So no longer, for example, look at this. So you no longer have to start with a blank slate anymore. You can actually start with predefined templates and increase your speed significantly in the design process. Now, for example, if you were to, and recently Apple released their own design resources. So, for example, if I were to, I'm not sure if you are aware about the Vision OS, um, the Vision Pro headset that they launched, but
Ah,
Apple actually released the assets for the Vision OS right here in Figma itself. So if you look at this, everything that a designer could probably need for developing apps for the headset are already readily available here. See this.
wow.
If I wanted to create templates for how my app would look like in a AR setting, then this is how it would look. The colors that Apple feels that you can use, textiles, everything is readily available. Same goes with your iOS apps as well. So if you wanted to develop, for example, an app for iPhone, you will find that Apple has released this file which has all the resources that you would probably need to design an app for iPhone. So if you see this, these are the sample widget designs. This is how the notifications will look.
So have
right?
you used these templates? Do you
Yes.
use these templates?
So we design things according to the platform. So if you are designing an iOS app, we start with this.
Makes sense.
Similarly, Google also has released it for material design, which is their design system. So we start with the material design file because it has all the things preloaded. And then what we have to do is, based on our requirement and the branding of the product, we customize the file and change the color schemes, textiles, and all of those things. And we actually get to designing the screens in this file. We modify this file.
Okay, so Google and Apple, I can understand where using those templates will come in handy, right? Because these are universal touch points, right? For a lot of people, for a lot of products rather. But the other things in the community, things like I just saw, a template for creating a travel app, let's say, or you talked about one dental app that you're using. So is that something that you would also suggest or want to call out to other developers saying, hey guys, just start at the community level and type in healthcare app and see what templates are already available and jump off from there?
Yeah, so exactly what you said. If I search for healthcare, you'll see that there are so many apps that people have already created and shared with the community. So you don't need to start from scratch anymore. So the design community is large enough that you can actually get a lot of inspiration. It doesn't mean that you have to use whatever they're sharing, but you can use this as a starting point and then creatively come up with solutions based on the problem that you're trying to solve.
Understood. For someone who is thinking about Figma right now, how would you describe its learning curve?
Oh, yes. So Figma is, I would say, only it will take 3 to 4 days for a complete novice to get the hang of it, like get started on using it. This was not true for tools like Photoshop and other Illustrator, CorelDRAW. This was not true for them. You would need months of training. Like people used to go to join classes to learn Photoshop. People used to join classes to learn CorelDRAW. This is no longer true. Of course, Figma is still an advanced tool, and some of the advanced capabilities you will get over time. But as a basic user, you no longer have that steep learning curve. In just a couple of days, you'll be able to create you'll be able to be in a very good position.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It seems like Figma has over the years really figured out the entire value chain, right? From community and templates to the experience of building your own screens to the collaboration part of it, right? And collaboration across different types of stakeholders.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's amazing. So so you would recommend this tool based on what you've said to even a novice designer, and even obviously the seasoned designers are probably already aware of this, but for someone who's starting out, you would recommend this tool to them?
So absolutely, for somebody who's starting out in the field of design or who's considering switching over to design, I would recommend, depending on where you're going. Let's say, for example, let me chart out a couple of scenarios. One is if you want to become a product designer, which is basically UI design. The ideal way for you to start out is just start with Figma. As simple as that. If you're going to dabble between product design and some social media or some other elements of graphic design, Figma can still do it, but I would rather recommend Canva for you because that's even more simpler to start and using. So, and recently Canva has introduced incredible features as well for professionals as well. But if you're going to dabble between graphic design and UI design, I would use a combination of Figma and Canva, or just Figma is also fine.
Got it. Okay, so you actually preempted my other question is what else in the toolkit
Yes.
can a designer have? So basically using Figma and Canva is where you need to start. And then
My entire company is running with Figma and Canva right now. We do not use any third tool. Only in the rare occasions, like 5% of our jobs, if we have something to give out to print, and only the reason is because printers have CorelDRAW. We had to use CorelDRAW because they don't accept any other files. It's very difficult to deal with them. So, so that's the only reason we use Corel. But 95% of our time, and even in that, I would say 80% of our time is spent in Figma. 15% here and there we use Canva as we need.
Anand, is there anything else that I've not asked you around, Figma, your experience as a designer, especially when it comes to tools and the ability to do your work better as a designer?
So right now, what we are seeing and what I'm seeing increasingly in this domain is designers no longer are just designing. So what is happening is designers are also taking over the role a little bit of doing front-end development, not because they know coding specifically, but because the front-end development itself has morphed into this space with a lot of no-code tools. Some examples you already know, Webflow. Some examples are also there where you can actually, there's another tool called Framer. You can actually design in Figma and directly import using their plugins. Like there's a Webflow plugin, there's a Framer plugin. You can actually import the entire design as it is into Framer or Webflow and start actually building a website there. Or rather, 50% of your work is already done. You just have to make sure that all the screens are connected, buttons are connected, and links are working and stuff like that. So lot of the designers that I'm seeing today are skilling up, I would say, into this no-code field as well, where they are taking up more and more of the development tasks because you no longer need to know coding to do some of these front-end work. So even in Figma, there are a couple of tools like Locofy and stuff like that, which allow you to convert your screens, even if it is mobile app or web app, into actual code. Like you can convert the screens into writable code that the developers can directly use. So there are so many things that are happening in this space right now, and it's changing literally every month. So I'm seeing a lot of things that are going very good in terms of and more power to the designers, right? Because they are somebody who want their vision to actually materialize the way they have designed it, which was not possible before. So that's what I'm seeing a lot more of, and it's a great direction that this industry is going into.
That's awesome. Anand, thanks so much for your time. This was super insightful, especially at the level of how Figma is allowing designers and developers to come together on the same platform. I know we also talked about templates, but I find this part really particularly fascinating because I can see how rewarding it is, right? To be able to have both teams, both who need to make the product come to life, be in the same space and not have any leakage of, that transfer of information. So really appreciate your time. Have a great end of the Thursday.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Same to you.
Awesome. Bye, Anand.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.